Okay, folks, we're starting the Sacher Torte, depending on where you're from. I guess Sacher. Anyway, it's not the simplest kind of sponge cake to make. It is a famous one from Vienna, a recipe from 190 years ago or less or more. Anyway, so it's pre-leavening, pre-chemical leavening, and that means it uses whipped white egg whites to create the leavening, just like a jaconde or sponges from many European countries before the invention of leavening. So that means it used air whipped into egg whites, whipped into the butter, lots of air. So I'm getting my shallow pan of water boiling to melt some chocolate. I have 2 cake tins that are 8 inches in diameter. I'm using springform only because I don't have matching sets of cake pans for every single diameter you can imagine. I have matching sets I have lots of unmatched sets, let's say. So I have a piece of parchment down there. It's been buttered, greased with butter, and then the parchment is in and it's greased with butter. And as you do with chocolate, you often, and it's a good idea, we want to dust it with some cocoa powder. I can't find my spoon at the moment. Thought I had it at my fingertips, but there's kind of a lot going on right now. 2 of these have to be dusted with chocolate powder so that the outcome doesn't have that white flour coating on that you see in some cakes and desserts like brownies and so on. So we're just going to tap this around. I'm sure my videos all get cut off because of the way YouTube shows them, but there's nothing I can do about that except for put the phone sideways. I suppose I'll try that one day. Okay, that's boiling too much. I'll just turn it off for now. I've got a few more things to do first. Okay, so I'm going nearly to the top. These things actually don't rise that far. And you want them to rise, but they're quite traditional, and they're traditionally a little thin. So let's put that aside. Nicely done, nicely done. Okay, so tap it out. Then we have our 2 sticks of butter. See, my cocoa powder fingers are already on it. That's half a pound, and it's also 2 cups. My scale went to scale heaven the other night, so I have to make all my measurements differently now. I have my water here coming up. I'll just put it on low to simmer, and that shallow base pan bowl. I have to wash my hands before I continue. Just a moment. This is going to be where we melt the chocolate, or part of the chocolate for this. So we've got to put 2/3. We gotta get this butter blended as you do with most cake recipes with the blending attachment, and 2/3 a cup of sugar, and get it nice and fluffy. That's 2/3. Just a touch more, tiny touch, like a pinch. Okay, so now that I have my kitchen covered in Dutch processed cocoa, we can begin the fluffing of the butter and sugar mixture. Voila, I found it. this attachment. Start slow, go a bit faster, it works nicely. And then in this pot of water, which isn't quite simmering yet, I'm gonna throw that on, blah, 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 a little faster. We're gonna do 1.5 cups, slightly less than a half cup of chocolate, semi-sweet. It's 1. Because I did a conversion and 8 ounces of chocolate is 1.4 cups, judging by some conversion people. Like I said, my scale is kaput. So this thing isn't supposed to touch the water, and this water shouldn't be boiling, it should be simmering, and I can feel it starting. This is whipping. Let's go further. I'm gonna whip that till it's very fluffy. While that gets up, we're gonna separate 6 egg whites and 6 egg yolks. Everything has to be at room temperature. The cream, the butter, the eggs, everything. Just like in the 18th century. Everything's the temperature of your room. It's winter near a big wooden fire. I'll be right back. Okay, friends, we're ready to do another stage in the Sacher Torte. There's probably a lot of going on here in front of the camera. What you really need to know is that I have 6 egg yolks. Voila. And we're gonna beat the sugar and, oh, turn that off so you can hear me. The sugar and butter combination has been blended. Just gonna whip it a little more so it's light and fluffy, and then we're gonna put this on medium, and blend in the room temperature eggs. Everything is room temperature, as I said before. Try to do it one at a time. Mine are, oh, there's one. Let's see if we can see this. They do actually like to hold together. I'm gonna do this on medium. That's how you get it to blend. But they won't blend if they're cold, if they're refrigerator cold. This is on level 4 out of 10. We're gonna add one more. And we're gonna take a spatula and get the last bit out. I see a stray bit of chocolate in there. That doesn't bother me because we're going to sorry, I just want to get it all out. Turn that off so you can hear me. Now we're going to, just want to wash that a bit. We're going to, we could scrape down the sides a little. Well, you know what? I'll scrape them at the end. We're going to add the melted chocolate now. Remember, it was 1.42 cups, which is basically 1.5 cups minus a few little chips. It's still warm because it's melted, but it's not hot. You don't want to be cooking eggs. Wow, that sure smells great. I don't know what wouldn't smell great made out of semi-sweet a cup and a half of semi-sweet chocolate. In a minute here, or in half a minute, when I get this all out, I'll be turning this, I'll scrape the sides down, turn this up to medium, this is low. I'm going to scrape the sides down for a second for a thorough mix of the batter. And we're going to mix it for a minute until it's blended at medium speed. I have chocolate everywhere. I don't even know where to put my hands. They're everywhere. Anyway, whatever. Okay, that's thoroughly mixed. Hands need to be washed. Hold on. Blah, blah, blah. And then we put we're gonna add 1.5 cups all-purpose flour slowly. Just check that out. Okay, I didn't do a great job. Just no pressure. I mean, no pressure as a cook, but no pressure on the flour. That looks about right. Slow. That's 1 cup, and this is a 1/2 cup. Still on slow. We don't want to when you have, after you add the flour, you really can't be beating this for very long because gluten will form and you'll have toughness in the dough. Look, I got chocolate everywhere. What is a person to do? Anyway, what is a baker to do? Anyway, the next stage will be to put this lovely batter, scrape it down, and a little bit. Wow, that's pretty nice. But as I mentioned before, there's no commercial leavening in it. And so this needs to go into a big bowl. And the secret is I now have to wash this bowl and dry it perfectly and make sure that there's not a hint of water, not a hint of oil, of any grease or any kind of butter or a hint of egg yolk, nothing. Because we're going to whip up some egg whites and make a meringue, and we're going to fold that in for the leavening, the traditional way. Thank you. Okay, folks, it's not too late to finish the sponges at least. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to wash the bowl and make sure there's nothing, the mixer bowl for the machine, and make sure it's dried completely. I gave it 20 minutes to dry after washing it. You don't want any bits of grease, fat of any kind, which includes egg yolk, butter, anything like the batter, when you're making a meringue. So I'm going to use the whisk attachment. That's the beep showing me that my oven is up to temp 300 Fahrenheit, which is very low, but that's what this kind of cake requires. I'm going to pour in my 7 egg whites, which I separated from the yolks earlier. The yolks are in my, I want to find the best cleanest one of these. The yolks are in the batter. Oh, I didn't mention that when I made this lovely batter, I forgot to add the vanilla. I needed half a teaspoon. Normally that's put into any batter after the egg yolks go into the sugar butter mixture. But since this is only half a batter, the rest will be completed through this method. I added it in here and just stirred it up by hand, not overbeating it or causing gluten to be formed. I have my 6, did I say 7? 6 egg yolks, 6 egg whites, 6 egg yolks are in here already. I need a half a teaspoon of salt in the egg yolks. I know that sounds weird. It is a little weird for those of us who make meringues as desserts, but this is where the salt goes. Okay, we'll whisk that up for about 3 minutes on slow. First thing to do is on low, we're going to look for some bubbles and frothiness, and then we will add a 1/4 cup of sugar slowly, and then turn it up a bit. It's not frothy yet. I'll be right back. It's a little frothy. It's not really amazingly frothy. I'll just start adding the sugar slowly. Oh, it's already frothy. Basically, we're going to get to firm peaks with a glossy look. The sugar dissolves into the egg whites, which is what makes them glossy. By the way, I know it's loud, sorry. This is the only leavening in this recipe. And it's, like I said, the same for the way cakes were made for centuries before bicarbonate of soda and baking powder were invented. It's going to take about 3 minutes. So I'm going to cut it off here and come back to you when it's time to do the folding in to the extraordinarily thick and rich chocolate batter. We're going to take my spatula, which I clearly disappeared on me. Oh. And we're going to spoon, we're going to mix half of this in. By mixing, I mean actually mixing. Mix, mix, mix. And the rest, after this is mixed, you could use a wooden spoon for this. Doesn't matter, it's the motion that makes the difference. Mixing is like this. Folding is different. Folding is like this. Fold, cut, fold. But here, we're going to just mix it all in so that this quite thick batter becomes receptive to the rest of the whipped egg whites, and it becomes more mousse-like. So let's stir it. I didn't realize it would take this long. I'm also cognizant of the fact that the oven beneath me, is on, which is sending some heat up here, and I don't really want anything to be preheated except the actual oven. Okay, so that's a, I don't know how to do this. Here we go. That's how you get it mixed, and now we're gonna fold. See how these kind of slightly fall out of the mixing bowl? That's because they are not stiff peaks. They are in the soft peak stage. And the thing with that is, it makes it even more crucial that you fold gently. Cut and fold. Otherwise, you're just gonna have hockey pucks. And, you know, I've made hockey pucks by accident before. So we're gonna fold, cut and fold, cut. There's a possibility that my peaks aren't actually firm enough, but it's supposed to be soft peaks. So here we go. I can tell that the heat beneath me is not doing me any favors, and something's not blending. I need a piece of wood. Should I wait? Will you wait for me to make it, to finish this? Perhaps not. Shouldn't actually take very long. Although sometimes people say it takes about 50 turns to fold batter like this that is so dense. Oh, I think it's getting there. Well, a giant piece just went on my toe in my flip-flops. This is flip-flops marquee after all. Nothing's good until you get a piece of it on your toe in the flip-flops kitchen. Okay, so here we go. I don't think any more turning and folding is required. This is, and in fact, I don't think you want more than that. Using my offset piece of paper from when I was cutting the discs of parchment out. I don't think you want to get into the phase where you ruin everything by churning and churning. Plus, it's getting hot and I can't turn on the fan or else you won't hear me. Just one moment. I have my prepared pans on this cookie sheet, and we're going to divide half of the batter between them. And because there's a piece of cloth underneath, and a warped board. That's not nice. Just do this as quickly as possible. Put them in at 300 for 25 minutes. And cross your fingers because we don't want hockey pucks. We want, there you go, hitting the camera. Blah, blah, blah. What's new, right? Okay, can you even see what I'm doing? No, not really. Okay. Just gonna smooth these out. I have to say they're quite nice looking right now. Just want to get them to the edges. There's going to be quite a bit of rising and then settling. So that would be quite normal to expect. I just don't want them to settle or sink in the center. That would be a failure, in which case I'll have to start over again. Okay, so that's one layer of the cake. This is the second. Okay, time to put it in. And the rest of the time I'll spend cleaning up. Okay, friends, so the cakes have come out. The sponges for the Sacher Torte. And they didn't sink in the middle very much. I used, it actually took around 35 minutes, not 25. I noticed that the center was still looking very liquid after 25. And I didn't even bother to use the toothpick method. I left them in another 10. I did the toothpick method. You can see I did it 3 times and added a little more time each time. But they came out clean. I think that's just the way they're supposed to be. Remember how dense that batter was. And the goal here was to let it set. And it is set, and they are almost totally cool. I've let them cool here on a rack in the pan for an hour, and you really want to do that or longer because it continues to cook. It continues to bake as it sets, and I don't want to show you, I don't know how to show you without making a mess, but they have separated from the sides during that hour. I have the spring forms going on here, because as I said, I don't have matching pans of every diameter. I have 8 inches springform pans, and I can tell they want to come off, but I'm not going to risk it. Okay, folks, we're going to work on the penultimate stage of assembly and covering of the Sacher Torte. We have 2 nicely cooled tortes, where chocolate tortes are where this cake gets the name from, Sacher Torte. And the filling, the traditional filling, is 1/4 of a cup. I made it heaping of apricot jam, heated up with 2 teaspoons of orange liqueur. In this case, it's Grand Marnier, but you could use Cointreau. I think they probably used Cointreau in Vienna, since it was so fascinated with France. Like so many empires after the end of the French Revolution. Anyway, so we have that heating. Take this out of the way. Meanwhile, we're going to make a small amount of ganache for the crumb coat. And that's going to require 1/2 cup scalding, 1/2 cup of cream, heavy cream. I don't have a smaller pot for that, so that should take no time. And scalding just means bringing it almost to a boil, but not actually burning it. So the scalding term is a little misleading. And then, of course, I want my chocolate in this bowl. We want this to warm up. If it's too runny, I'm going to add more jam. And I will get back to you when both of these have heated up. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but that's starting to bubble. And that's exactly where you need to take it off the heat. Half a cup of heavy cream and pour it onto half a cup of semi-sweet chocolate. And you let it steep for a few minutes before stirring because you need the heat to get into the chocolate. And stirring prematurely can cause granular, granules to form, meaning that the chocolate has formed crystals. So I'll leave that like that. I have a lovely consistency of quite liquidy, warm. Let's see at the temperature. Not hot. That's good, just warm. Apricot jam with a soupçon of orange liqueur flavor. The liquid has, the alcohol is burned off, obviously. And we just want to put it on the lower level, the lower layer, and quite generously because it's warm enough to melt into the cake at this point a little bit. The cakes are completely cooled because I cooled them overnight. I couldn't risk moving them when they were still slightly warm in the middle, in the center, slightly gooey. Tortes are very dense, and they are kind of like brownies, but you don't really want it to be like a brownie. That's not the point. That would be gooey and not very cake-like. So we're just gonna spread this over almost to the edge. The other cake layer is going to squish this out. And we want a nice thick layer. We don't want it running down the sides, which brings me to another point, which is that the reason that I haven't put this on a cake stand or any kind of turntable, the reason for that is because of the way it will be glazed, and it will be obvious later that you need to have a rack and a pan. So we're going to quickly flip this. Oh, what did I do? Oh no. I just want to flip it over. Oh. I almost had it. It's very moist, and that's how you want it. But we want a kind of flat top for the ganache layer. I guess I fixed it. There was no way that I was gonna, I didn't have to use my thumb. Anyway, let's stir up some ganache, and this is the coat layer that you put before you put on the glaze. The crumb coat, which effectively encapsulates any crumbs, and you can see there's lots of them. Okay, folks, so we have the ganache, which is nice and firm, like frosting made of buttercream would be. And we're going to crumb coat the cake here and try to level out the top because it's not level. But the entire goal here is to prepare the torte to be smooth and receptive to the sorry, I'm thinking as I'm doing it, to prepare the torte for the glaze, which is also ganache. I'll be using different chocolate for that because of its elasticity. So we want to, and you know, I just have to admit here that I froze this a bit, or I put it in the freezer. It's not frozen, but that's why it's got a bit of granularity to it when I spread it evenly. The goal here, so that's nice and flat, but we want to bring it down the sides. We know that there's a nice layer within of apricot filling, and I also I just want to make sure that we have smooth edges for the next layer. And of course, because I'm on a sheet here, this is going into turning into a bit of a difficult process as the chocolate drips down. But we just want to cover the layer, cover the separation of the layers, and coat where crumbs may happen. So that's what I'm doing right now. And this will have to chill, seriously chill, before we get to the stage where we do the glaze, which is another ganache. But I'm going to use different kinds of chocolate for the ganache, not just chocolate chips. But you could use chocolate chips, semi-sweet. It's just that this other chocolate has a liquidity factor based on cocoa butter fat content, and that's not easily obtained with chocolate chips from the grocery store, but it is attainable. Okay, so I'll continue coating the outside and then chill this, I think, for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. In the meantime, I'll do, well, when I get back to you, I'll be making more ganache with but a larger quantity, meaning 1 cup of cream and 1 cup of different kinds of strong chocolate. 75% here, 85% here. Look how I made a mess. And I'll be right back to you. All right, folks, here we go. So I have my chilled creme-coated cake, torte. Kind of looks a little banal in this at this stage. I'm making ganache here the same way I did before, but I doubled the recipe, still using the 1-to-1 ratio of scalded cream to 1 cup scalded cream to 1 cup Valrhona chocolate, in this case 75% cocoa, which has a high viscosity level and is a little bit darker than the semi-sweet chocolate I used here. And I'm not going to whisk it or stir it until it's steeped a little bit. I don't want to waste your time. Let's just see. These pellets are quite a bit larger, as you can see, and I don't think it's ready. It's almost ready. I'll be right back. Let's see what goes on. I guess I am kind of rushing it for the camera. The heat from the scalded milk, which, as I said, well, it's cream, heavy cream, as I said, is going to do its work first before we start to agitate it, but I can see that I can feel it actually. That's a thing that you need to know about baking, that feel and sounds are actually just as good and are equally useful as what you can see with your eyes. And of course now we're gonna get this sudden bloom of chocolate, dark chocolate looking ganache. And the heat's down. I hope the heat's down here. Not really. I used both of these earlier. I want the thing to cool a little bit before we apply it to the cake, but not so cool as it might turn into. There we go. We got we have our ganache. I'd like to take that away from any heat and just stir it up nicely. I'm not gonna whisk it. It's not required. Now you have a nice glossy and liquidy glaze. That's what you want. Don't know if you can see it, but it's gorgeous. And the thing is, I'm gonna have to use my finger to I don't want it to melt the cake. I just want it. Okay, that's not hot at all. So this is gonna be the stage of no return. If we can't get this glorious glaze from, where's my spatula? Here it is. Done in very quickly in a really nice smooth way, then you're not gonna have the result you're looking for. So I'm going to this is kind of difficult given that these burners are still hot. I want to pour it down the sides of the cake first. Voila, voila, voila. It's not going down the side. But it will. Have confidence. Don't forget the center. There's no turntable here, so we're just gonna wing it. And soon all of this will be used up and a lot of it will end up in the tray below. I haven't made extra chocolate because chocolate's not here to be wasted. The thing is, at this warmth, you can still spread it without ruining the effect. Okay? So spread, spread, spread. Smooth the side. Smooth the sides. You have glorious, glorious finish. And I can see I have one spot left. There's still some dripping, which I like, which means I can continue all the way around. Now you know why, instead of a turntable, I'm using a rack on a sheet pan. And don't touch it anymore. That's it. No more touching, or else it won't be a glaze, it'll be a frosting. Okay, so you have your glazed Sacher torte, and it's pretty homemade. I could have done better with the glaze. I could have made it a bit looser so that it just poured, and these kind of trowel marks wouldn't have shown, but it's all good. So it's all good as far as I'm concerned for a home bake. Anyway, so instead of writing Sacher on it, Sacher, depending on where you come from, I'm going to gild the lily with a little bit of luster dust. Oh, I should say that it's safe to transfer it to the cake plate when the glaze starts to get a bit dull. And not just start, it should be slightly dull. That means that the glaze is set well enough to transfer to the cake plate. And I'm also employing the paper trick that I've shown you before. But I've never done the luster dust topping, and I really want to try it. So we're gonna put some in with the gold dust. It's not very cheap, so you kind of want to be careful. You want to be careful. Gold luster dust, edible gold. Hold on here. Let's get a little more. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's just tap, 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 gently, gently, gently. Keep this thing, get this thing golden, and you will have, oh, well, that was a bit of an accident. I don't think it matters. I'm just gonna keep, I don't know if you can see how sparkly that is, but I think it's pretty good. I'll do a little more. I don't know, use everything I have on this. Just be gentle and get your cake gilded. I guess this is almost a literal definition of gilding the lily. That's enough for me. Don't want to waste it. And then we're going to do the big reveal. Check out, oh, that didn't come out evenly. I'll have to get a little device here to keep the cake on, which is fine with me because I can smooth it some more. All right. Et voila. A homemade, let's get that off. A homemade Sacher torte.